Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us today here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short, the financial advisors and the father-son team behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can go to the website, welcomehomefp.com, to find out more about Ralph, about Tim, the entire team over there, welcomehomefp.com. You can also give a call, get on their calendar for the week or the weeks ahead, 804-635-3550. Don't worry, not going to put you on the air right now. Just get on their calendar for that complimentary appointment. 3 offices in the Richmond location. Find the one that's closest to you and schedule that time, 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan, and I'm pleased to be joined, as I am every week, with Ralph and Tim. Gentlemen, it's good to see you again. How are you today?
Doing good, Chris.
Great.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule to spend with the listeners here. The markets have gotten their fair share of attention lately, and I actually read an op-ed from an economist at the New York Times who wrote that the next financial crisis could be more severe than 2008. His point is that there's not one big problem here. It's multiple things kind of creating a perfect storm: geopolitics, private credit, AI. His argument is that it's all connected, which could make the fallout more severe. So let's talk about this. For somebody that's 5 years away from retirement, is this more noise, or is this something that we should take heed of? Does it change how much protection somebody should be considering?
Well, that's a great question. I think, everybody remembers 2008 and, what happened and what didn't happen. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are panicking, and I wouldn't say it's just noise. There's a lot of things that are happening. So, what you got to factor in is the multiple risks that could potentially happen in a bad way all at one time. So, there's a lot of people that are waiting to retirement plan once they retire. And I think that's probably not a very wise idea, because if things happen, if you're within 5 years of retirement, you might not have the time to recover. So I think it's very important to, start taking a look at these different risks. I think stress test the retirement plan against the market downturns is going to be something that will definitely work in their favor, especially, there's a lot of people that try to time the market per se. And, one of the worst things that could happen in early retirement is a bad downturn that you didn't address beforehand, because let's face it, Chris, there's a lot of people now that they're definitely not proactive. They're more reactive. Mm-hmm. So that's what you don't want to have happen, especially when it comes to your lifetime savings. And hopefully we're living another 30 or 40 years in retirement. But I think reducing your exposure when it gets to that point, to where if the market does go down, whether it's a correction or a recession or, God forbid, something worse, that you're not going to have to continue to work. And I think, once again, is being more proactive with it, because there are a lot of things that are happening right now. This is a very fluid world, and it doesn't wait for you to make any type of adjustments. So I think, for most people, is they really have to start taking a look at where they're at, reassessing their risk, and figuring out if that's going to align with their near future.
And I'd say for a lot of people, they have knee-jerk reactions because guess what? Global tensions, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what decade that you've survived all this stuff that we have to listen to, talking about energy supply, oil supply, talking about chip shortage, geopolitical, all this stuff is going to take let's just say a reaction from the market. But does that mean that you have to react the same way? Probably not. If you have a plan and a written plan and you understand what you're trying to do, it may just be a good buying opportunity for you. But should you have all your money within the stock market if you're retirement? Probably not, because, everybody's talking big about the private equity stuff. Do you really understand that? Do you really know that you can't get your money out except in certain times? And if you need it out now, guess what? You may not be able to. So those are some things that, you really need to take into consideration when you're sitting there talking about where you have your money in retirement. Now, if you're 25 years old like you are, Chris, you don't have to worry about the market because you've got plenty of time for that market to come back up. We always joke at each other about our age, right?
That's right.
But I think the real danger that we are facing in this time is that everything is so interconnected. Mm-hmm. Because, internet's great, but everybody knows everything about everybody and probably nothing about anything. So those are things that you need to take in consideration, because there are things out there that probably will not make your retirement as rosy as you thought it was going to be. This he was the one that predicted the 2008 crisis and all that. And he's talking the same thing. And I would say our goal is not to predict the next crisis. It's to help you be prepared for it. And that's the thing that you need to understand. What is your plan? It's different than my plan. It's different from Tim's plan. But what is your plan? And how are you going to react when things don't go exactly the way you had planned? You need probably somebody to maybe hold your hand or kind of talk you off the cliff. So those are a lot of things as fiduciaries that we do sit down and talk with people about. And, I just got through talking to somebody today as the client that is concerned because 3 years ago, her account was at this point before she came to see us. And, she's only been with us 2 months and she's wanting to know why I had lost so much money over the last 3 years. I'm like, I don't know what you did before you came with us, but those are questions that a lot of people, when they take a look at their statement, they don't understand them. So they call us and say, what's going on here? And, of course, when they're reading the statements, they forget about, I took out $50,000 in the last 2 months from this account to help pay for a couple of things. Well, you mean that takes away from my accounts? Huh. Well, yes, ma'am, it does. So, those are all things that you just really have to have a better understanding of what it is that we do and what we can help you do. Because the next crisis is not going to come from something that we had planned. It's about something unexpected.
No, absolutely. And that's why it's a crisis. And that's why people just don't see it coming. And I think that's what's important takeaway is, so instead of reacting to the headlines, you got to make sure that your plan is designed to hold up regardless of what triggers that downturn, because it's always going to be some sort of factor, right? Mm-hmm. We just don't know until it gets there.
There's always something going on. If you come into any of the 3 offices at Welcome Home Financial Partners, one thing you will not find is a crystal ball. There's no predicting the future. They are not. We can't say that the next financial crisis is going to happen this year or next year, but over the course of a 20, 30-year retirement, there's probably going to be more than one. So if the warning signs are there, what are you doing to prepare yourself? I took a road trip with my son not too long ago. We went over to Asheville, and I got my oil changed, got my car looked at beforehand. And the mechanic told me that there were cracks in my serpentine belt and I should probably address it eventually. I went ahead and took care of it that day because the last thing I wanted to do was be stranded in the mountains with him. It just made me feel better. So if there is a financial crisis happening at some point, again, can't predict when it's going to happen, would it make more sense to maybe switch into more of a protective mode if you are closer to retirement and you don't want to, jeopardize losing 20, 30% of it? Certainly worth taking a look at. And it is a conversation the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners will be happy to have with you, show you what your risk tolerance actually is, and then, your risk exposure at the same time if they don't align, finding ways to balance that and create that overall comprehensive retirement roadmap. But it begins with a phone call, 804-635-3550. Again, 804-635-3550. If you go online to the website, welcomehomefp.com, you can also schedule a time there, find out more about them, poke around, see that they've been there for a while. And I bring that up because there was a story I read recently about a woman in Maryland who was posing online as a financial advisor. She was selling $800 courses and posting pictures of herself leading a luxury life in a mansion. I'd say posing because she's really on food stamps and she was squatting in a 7,500 square foot house she didn't own. So fast forward a little bit. Yes, she was arrested. But today, anybody can look like a financial expert online. And for somebody that's approaching retirement or already there, it can be kind of hard to discern between real expertise and just a really good sales pitch. So how do you know the person giving you financial advice is legitimate, accountable, and actually qualified to guide you through retirement and not just good at selling themselves?
Well, I'll tell you, that story is the perfect example of why verification matters, right? And we live in the world today. I mean, I've heard so many stories, not financial advisory wise, but, people renting hangars with a private jet for how many ever dollars an hour just for Instagram models to look good and take pictures of we're flying here, we're flying there, and none of it's true. So, there's a lot that goes into that. But one thing that you've got to do is you've got to verify, right? So obviously, that person or persons need to have properly licensed and properly registered and upheld the standards, right? Like we're certified financial fiduciaries. We are held to a higher standard than others are. So, appearances are great. Yes, we all do want to look rosy. I'm waiting for a comment from Dad over there, but he's not going to make a comment there. But I think it is very important okay, appearances are great, right? We do our television programs, we do our radio shows, we do all of these things, but we also are held to high standards. And that's where it's important, because it's not just, okay, hey, you see somebody on TV who's talking about X, Y, and Z, right? We've got to have the licenses. We've got to be registered. We've got to have all of these things. And that's what's important. It's not about, the mahogany desks and the nice wood paneling when you walk into an office. That's not what it's all about. It's all about verifying who these folks are.
And I would say, for a lot of people, you really do need to make sure you're dealing with somebody that you really can trust, and you need to verify them. It's like the old Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. Mm-hmm. So, and you can always check them out online, if they're registered security license, there's broker check, things like that. But I think, for a lot of people, the bottom line is you need to start asking questions before you start investing with them. Those are some things that be a little bit proactive yourself and just said, oh, I didn't know that. Well, why don't you just ask some of the questions that you might need to know before you start thinking about that? I mean, if people start telling you, and there's a lot of people ask us, and I think Tim will agree, is what's the market going to be like, 6 months from now or a year from now? My answer is always, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. And if anybody tells you they know, then you probably need to run away. Now, there are hints that it might be good now because of these reasons, but for us to say, like you say, we do not have a crystal ball.
Right.
But if they promise you high returns and no risk, that's a red flag that you just really need to say they're putting on a good sales job for you. And the other thing is saying, what it's like to be in a timeshare presentation. It's too good to be true, but you got to do this now. You can't miss out on this thing. It's just the way it is. I mean, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for here, sign here. I mean, that's another, to me, a telltale sign that you kind of need to not just walk away, but maybe run away from that until you check some things out. And, if there's no clear explanation of fees and how they're going to get paid, after they've told you what their recommendations are, that is something else that you probably need to question. And, the person that is asking for this advice, you need to take your time. Maybe you should get a second opinion. Mm-hmm. A good advisor just doesn't help you grow your money. Make sure that it's going to be there for you when you need it. That's the object of this whole event that we do, and the job that we do is making sure that we understand what you're trying to do. And 10 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever, it's going to work the way we think. Now, is it going to work exactly the way we thought it was going to work? No, it never does, because there's always going to be roadblocks that we didn't predict, or the government gets involved in certain things that they shouldn't get involved in, but we have no control over. So I just think that for a lot of people, they just need to have a better understanding of what their goal is and find the person you feel like can help you get there. Not the salesman, but the person that honestly understands your aspirations and help you guide you there.
Yeah, and I think accountability is another big piece of this too, mm-hmm. right? If somebody's live streaming and selling you a virtual course, well, you have no hell of an idea where they're at, right?
Right.
We've talked about it before, is you'll hear people on the radio or people on TV, and you go look them up, and they're in California, or they're in Maine, or they're in Florida. Yes, I touched on kind of the furthest parts away from Virginia at that point. But, if you can't walk into somebody's office and hold them accountable, and it's either via Zoom or by phone, I think that's another issue too, because, we've had people that have called from radio and TV, and they flat out just say, I want somebody local to where I can just walk into the office and say hi. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, you're not going to be able to do that if you're selling some virtual course online.
And it comes back to the selling. Out of curiosity, how many $800 courses have you guys sold in the past week?
Zero. And I'm not squatting in somebody's house as we speak either.
Exactly. And I just want to point that out. If you go to welcomehomefp.com and you scroll down to the bottom there, you're going to see two things there. One, you're going to see a couple things actually, but certified financial fiduciary, meaning acting in the client's best interest. not in their best interest, in the interest of the client. Again, sometimes telling them things they may not necessarily want to hear, but that they need to hear because it will hopefully educate them better and inform them. Again, putting your needs first. Also, you're going to find a link to their Better Business Bureau rating, A+, by the way, as of a couple of days ago. So again, trust but verify, do your due diligence. And then, of course, they're not going to say $800 courses, certainly not $800,000, but they're not going to say those courses. They're also not going to put a plan directly in your hand and sell you something for that first deployment. It is complimentary because it is getting to know you and then beginning to put that plan around that. So a great way to find out what they're about. Go to the website, set up a time to speak with them, whether it is in the offices, 3 right here in Richmond, or attending one of the First Friday events that are coming up. Again, welcomehomefp.com, or give a call, 804-635-3550. Now, the Academy Awards were handed out last week. Maybe you watched, maybe you didn't. I can name 2 movies that came out last year, and I don't know how many Zootopia 2 won. But here's a fun fact for you. Next time you're at an Oscar party or what have you, if you win an Oscar, that statue wasn't actually yours. You can keep it, but you can't sell it. And if you decide to pass it down, well, your heirs, they can't sell it either. And if you break the rules, well, the Academy, they can take you to court over it. In a strange way, it's a lot like Uncle Sam. Your 401k and your IRA, that's not all yours. IRS has a claim in it. If you pass it on, again, IRS gets paid before your kids do. In retirement, there are things that you can't sell or move freely because of liquidity rules. And if you don't follow the rules, of course, there are penalties. So here's the big question, guys. Is there any way to gain more control over your retirement money so that fewer tax decisions are dictated by Uncle Sam's rulebook?
Well, that's a great comparison because I know that a lot of retirement money comes with strings attached. So the IRS does have a say when it comes to the RMDs, when it comes out, how it's going to be taxed. And now, with Secure Act, I guess 1.0 and 2.0, there's a lot of things that have changed when it comes down to inheriting certain money. So I think that's important to plan for because there's a lot of people that we deal with and that we work with that they don't necessarily need to worry about touching their accounts until it gets to that certain age of the RMDs. And now because they let it continue to build and build and build because they don't necessarily need it or want it. Well, guess what? Now that's a lot more that they have to pull out at that point, whether it's 70 and a half, 73, 72, 75, whatever. I mean, it's been it's been a lot going on with those rules and regulations. So, it is important to know how it all works. But, like what we do with our clients is we want to strategically plan those withdrawals, right? There's a lot of things that go on in the market, and there's a lot of things when it comes to taxation is where, maybe we just start taking out some withdrawals, maybe not just doing Roth conversions, but making sure that you're pulling from the right assets at the right time, whether it's taxable, tax deferred, or even tax-free buckets, and reducing those surprises later in retirement. Because once again, if you've done a good job with reducing debt, you have pension, Social Security, or maybe other sources of income, whether it's rental properties, what have you. And you're just like, oh, guess what? I'm just going to worry about it when I have to start pulling money from. Well, if you've got now $10 million because you turned your $3 million into 10, think about how big that RMD is going to be.
Yeah.
So that's going to mess up a lot when it comes to what your income is, what Medicare premiums are. There's a lot to deal with that. So, yes, really what it comes down to is how you save your money when you start taking your money out. And these are things that we walk our clients through.
And I think one of the things that people forget or don't fully understand is that the more money you make, the more taxation of your Social Security is going to be. And a lot of people say, what do you mean I got to pay taxes on Social Security? I say, well, if you had an income level this and this, then you're going to pay this. So those are all things like Tim says we talk about. And he did hit briefly on the Medicare premium. So that means your premium can go up because you're making more money than the government wants you to make. And they're still in control of your taxable situation, whether you want to believe it or not. And the other thing is for your heirs is there's a 10-year rule that in inherited IRAs or retirement accounts that you're going to have to get them rid of within 10 years or a 25% penalty. But, tax deferred accounts that we've always been told on, another fallacy in their government's sales pitch is that when you are in retirement, you should be at a lower tax bracket. Well, if you've got a pension, if you got Social Security, if you got rental income, if you got RMDs coming in, guess what? I just got through talking to a woman that called in off her TV show today, and she's calculated based on what she's thinking now in 3 years, she's going to be at the same income level as she is while she's working. And she said, is that possible? And I said, well, it's possible. I just don't know your details because we haven't gone over them yet, but that's why you come in and let's sit down and do our roadmap for you. But, those are things the government has control over. The only thing that you've got control over is your tax diversification. Do you know that you've got some tax-free income, you got some taxable income, and some tax-deferred income? Do you have any type of plan for strategic withdrawals? Do you have any income planning where you're going to say, I'm going to take some of this money and maybe convert it into a Roth while I'm in a lower tax bracket before I get hit with all the big RMDs? Those are things that you have control over. This is where you have to be proactive and have a plan, and not just in your head, because if you're like me, you might forget it tomorrow or even an hour from today. But, I think the biggest issue for you to fully understand is this. If you don't have a plan to basically handle your money, guess what? Who has one? And that's called the IRS. They have one whether you like it or not, whether you approve it or not. They have one for you. Would you like to be able to control that yourself instead of some government official, Chris?
Yeah, I would say so. It's really easy to to poke fun at the government. I want to give credit where credit is due. They're pretty good at finding ways to take money out of our wallets, whether it is, with higher Medicare charges for the exact same benefit, might I add, or, the elimination of the stretch IRA with Secure Act 1.0. That is a tax on your beneficiaries down the line. RMDs, of course, these are ways that they will get their share. I'm not going to say fair, but their share of your hard-earned dollars. But you could be proactive about it. You can start developing a plan to mitigate, minimize, if not outright eliminate those charges and get to keep more of that hard-earned money to utilize as you see fit. But you have to have a plan put together, and that is where the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners comes into play. You go to welcomehomefp.com, set up a time to speak with them, come into the offices, pick the one of your choosing, attend the First Friday event. You can also give a call and start developing that plan as well. Have that conversation, 804-635-3550. Mal Hall has been doing stand-up comedy for 20 years, and he says there is one childhood memory that still haunts him today. See if you can relate to this.
When you guys were kids, did your parents tell you that it was illegal to use the dome light in the car at night? How did these veteran parents get that one around the country? Pre-internet. Did they all just call a parent, hey, tell 10 other parents this lie? Here's the crazy thing about that one. So I'm 40 years old. If you're in my car tonight after the show and we need to find something, that light is on and then off immediately. Because as a 40-year-old man, I'm still not sure if that's true or not, and I don't want to test it.
I will let either one of you weigh in on this. Is this something that happened, Tim, or to Tim, growing up, hearing the crime that was leaving the dome light on?
Well, not that I recall, and of course, nothing would come out of my parents' mouth that wasn't true. So,
okay,
I'm willing to bet you that they never did this to me. But yeah, I think there's a lot of retirement myths. I think one of the biggest things right now, especially, is that Social Security is going away. Mm-hmm. It probably will not. Now, granted, I can't guarantee that. I have no inside scoop. I don't work for the federal government. But we do know that changes will probably have to happen. But those people who are telling you that it's going to go away, they're probably just trying to do some fear-based weird mind trick on you. So I think that's something that you've got to not necessarily pay attention to, but be mindful of. Because when you build a plan, like the plans that we build is, yes, Social Security is going to be a piece of this, but if for some crazy reason it did go away, we should still be successful. And I think that's what the most important piece to that is. But I think one of the biggest ones that's often overlooked is people think that they're going to spend less, and many don't, right? There's a little bit more time on our hands, more than likely, when we're in retirement. So It's maybe a little bit easier for for Meta to find you on Facebook or Instagram. And next thing you know, you were talking about, oh, how nice it would be to have a sauna in my backyard. And now here we go. Here's ads.
We're all going to get those ads now, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we can compare and contrast models later.
All right.
But I think, those are things that you've got to pay attention to, because if we have more time on our hands, then more than likely there could be some more money spent. But not just that, a lot of people think, and I know Dad will tell you the same thing too, is people are like, hey, the next few years when I retire, I'm going to travel. I'm going to the Maldives. I've always wanted to do that. I'm going to New Zealand. I want to touch all 7 continents. Great. That's fantastic, because I'm in the same boat. But on the same side is they think that after 5 or 10 years, well, we're not spending the money on those trips anymore, which is probably accurate, right? But there's also other things that we'll probably end up spending money on. And those are things that we don't want to spend money on. And that's healthcare. Those are, emergency surgeries that pop up if your dog runs into the back of your leg or anything like that. So I think, that is one of the things that you've got to stick to having a realistic budget. So it's not, okay, well, my gas is going to go down because I'm not going to travel as much because I'm not going back and forth to work. Well, yeah, you might not be going back and forth to work, but you might be making more trips. So it's going to even itself out. So I think, when people take a look and they're not realistic as far as what they're going to end up spending and just thinking it's going to be less, it's probably not accurate.
Yeah, I would say, Tim, the way I would phrase that is, expenses are going to shift during your retirement years. They're not going to disappear. They're going to move from one place to another, whether it's from travel to maybe medical or maybe helping your grandkids college or something like that. But they're not going to decrease unless you are living somewhere under a rock, because expenses, no matter if you have the same expenses today, 5 years from now, they're going to be more spending on the same exact thing. Mm-hmm. But I think another misconception that a lot of people have, and I will say it to you this way, we have a lot of clients that come in and would say, this retirement planning is not as simple as I thought it was. It's more complicated than saving money, because all I did to get this 401k built up like I've got is I just took money out of my paycheck and put it in there. I said, well, you did the right thing, right, but you are correct. I mean, if you've got a pension, there's so many different decisions that you got to make there. And then it's talking about, what do I do with the 401k? Do I leave it there? I don't have any control over it. If I leave it there, if I move it over to you and your IRAs, things like that, at least I know where it's at and I can sit down and talk to somebody. But I think most retirement mistakes don't come from bad luck, even though a lot of people will try and make that. They come from believing the wrong things. They hear something from their neighbors or their coworkers or something on TV that, they say you need to have $5 million or you can't retire, things like that. I mean, how do they know? How does anybody know anything about you if they've never met you, if they've never sat down with you and talked with you? And I think that's the biggest thing that I would have people to understand, is that retirement planning is not as simple as everybody makes it out to be. It's not about how much money you have. It's about, how do I get it back to me to use it as a paycheck with the minimization of taxation and to enjoy what I've earned all these years. Now, you may not want to take any of your money out because you want to leave it to your kids who may not deserve it, or who may deserve it. We don't know at this point in time. But, it's just, you just got to have a plan that works in the real world, not with some hypothetical situation that somebody in Kalamazoo, Michigan said you need to do. It's something about you and what you're trying to do. And that's the thing that we kind of pride ourselves in. We can't tell you what you need to do until we know what you're trying to do. Would you agree, Tim?
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole thing, is because it's based off that person, that individual. And, talking about that 4% rule, well, that's probably not going to work for you, nor will the 8% rule. And, you really got to factor in, once again, what you're going to need and what you're going to want, and then position your assets accordingly, and not just say, hey, let's just leave everything where it is or everything in the market. As long as we're only taking 4% or less, we'll be okay. I don't want to guesstimate that bad in my retirement.
And it would not be acting in the client's best interest if you guys put that same principle, that same cookie cutter approach with every single client, because everyone's needs are going to be different. Everyone's desires are going to be different. Here's something that's true, though. People retire for the first time. They've never done it before, and that can be daunting, intimidating, going it on your own. The good news is you don't have to do it on your own. The team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, they can help you, get to, through, and beyond retirement. And as fiduciaries, they are going to act in your best interest. If you have some of these myths, I will be in a lower tax bracket. Perhaps you will. Let's run the numbers and see what that looks like. Have them run the numbers. Healthcare is going to, not be a factor. Well, hopefully, but let's address that. Putting together the plan and telling you the things that you definitely need to be aware of, and not just the things that you want to hear, is part of acting in your best interest. And it's something that can hopefully give you more confidence as you enter into retirement, because at the end of the day, we all do aspire to retire. So pick up the phone and set up the time to speak with them, complimentary time to speak with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, 804-635-3550. 804-635-3550, or you can always go online to the website as well, and that is welcomehomefp.com. As always, we appreciate you joining us, spending part of the day here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Hope you stay safe out there. Gentlemen, appreciate the time as always. And as we wrap up, I do want to leave you with the final word.
Yeah, thank you, Chris, and we appreciate your time as well. But we've talked a lot about uncertainty and a whole lot of change going on, estate planning, Roth conversions. These things are very important and can be very important for your retirement plan. So, if anything you heard today kind of struck a nerve, if you will, give us a call. We'd love to see what kind of value we can provide for you. We bring it into the office and we can create your very own retirement roadmap. But pick up the phone, give us a call, visit the website, attend one of the first Friday events. We'd love the opportunity to meet with you. So we want to thank everybody for listening, and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.